Hello, everyone. Wasn't expecting a full room to listen about the Halo way, but I'll adjust as I go. So yeah, thanks for making the talk this morning. What we're going to talk about today is, as I said, the Halo way. Specifically, not sure how many of you read the synopsis. Not going to make any assumptions. Specifically around how an organization in the last 5 years was able to move from being a bedroom startup with 4 or 5 people to becoming a global player in the ITSM market. One thing I think is really important is that we're going to cover some of the pillars on how we structured our organization, how we run our business. And we do think that some of the elements that I'm going to cover today can be either relevant or at least insightful for the way in which service desks and support teams operate today around the globe. So just going to start by introducing myself. I was actually employee number 20 at Halo, coming up to 5 years at the organization. Started as a technical consultant, my first job out of university, moved into the product team, and right now I'm responsible for the growth of the product, I guess. One thing you'll see is we don't take our job titles very seriously. Another thing that's important, and I think I probably want to address the elephant in the room, is that we're very used, me and my team, I can see my team there, shout out. We're very used to, often being questioned or challenged, and the argument is often, we've been working in service management for longer than you've been alive, and the truth is, yes, that's true. We accept that, and how does that work? How does a team of relatively young, to some extent inexperienced people, we're able to achieve what we have? And the key element of this is the way in which we organize and run our operations. So, having said that, since I started at Halo, just some stats. We have 6 times more customers globally, 20 times the revenue. We opened 3 new global offices, and we have a new open bar and slide in the office, as you can hopefully see. Today is not about saying how having a slide and an open bar at the office is going to be the future of any workplace, by the way, but it does help. So in terms of talking about how we structure our workplace, just going to run through the agenda and what I'm going to cover today. The first thing that's important to understand is that the reason for our success is sort of inherently built in our organizational structure. We think long-term because we are completely privately owned, bootstrapped, and we don't have pressure of short-term results. We do find that short-term focus can lead to increased stress and it's a detriment to the development of individuals. The way in which I'd like to present this is going through 4 main items. The first one is the culture. Probably a word you hear a bit too much nowadays, and if you're active on LinkedIn, it seems like a post every 2 is about company culture, but I'll try and make it a little more interesting. Efficiency, how efficiency is at the heart of everything we do. The importance of communication, how to structure effective communication, and then the concept of accountability, how every individual, every new hire, every new member of the team is responsible for the direction, for spreading the culture, and for continuing in our journey of growth. And we're going to do a recap at the end just to sort of cover the main takeaways. I'm going to start with the culture. As I said, extremely long-term thinking. That's how we're able to prioritize culture. If we were to get bogged down on day-to-day, there's this deal or there's this project, that would stop us from being able to actually cover what matters. And the only way to actually focus on that is being employee-owned. So everyone who has a share or stake in the company works directly, is directly involved with decision-making, and is in touch with operations. From a cultural perspective, that allows us to also have a very limited structure, right? Limited hierarchy. And we do see that, around some of our customers and the way in which they organize their teams, kind of removing the element of one person responsible, accountable for everything, and actually being shared and empowering individuals to be able to determine the directions and the KPIs of their teams. The other important element is sharing success. The same way that we share accountability, we share success. If you were only to share the burden, it would never work. 2 key points, I think they're probably the most important ones in our culture, are what we called camaraderie and what we call siege mentality. I'll spend a minute covering both. Camaraderie is just about feeling part of a team, working with the group of individuals with which we share the culture and therefore we share a vision. An example of camaraderie is, I'd like to challenge anyone in the audience if they've ever seen a SaaS company that doesn't pay their salespeople commission. It's extremely rare. I personally haven't encountered it. We do not have commission on the individual deals. We have bonuses based on team performance. That's what fosters camaraderie. There's other elements of camaraderie, of course, around just being able to share the journey and having worked together for 5 years since seeing it grow helps a lot. But there's actually examples in the way in which we are remunerated as well. And the other in siege mentality, allow me to use almost a football, or I should say soccer, given the audience, analogy. Manchester United, a football team or soccer team from the UK, manager for 30 years, Sir Alex Ferguson. He really mastered siege mentality, and we really try and replicate that in training. It's just that feeling of grouping together, creating an us against them narrative. And how does it relate to culture? Well, the us against them is how proud we are of our culture, how proud we are of being able to go against the grain sometimes, question the way things are done, and finding a way to actually help us drive motivation based on that feeling of almost being surrounded by other, whether it's competitors or organizations doing things in a very different way. And of course, in terms of day-to-day culture, that also reflects in the way in which we're structured. There's no rooms, everyone sits together, all open plan. Our CEO sat to a desk next to an intern. It's very important because going back to the reason we're able to actually learn so quickly and evolve so quickly as individuals is because if it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill, we have all done those 10,000 hours next to people that have actually been in the industry long enough, that have actually drove the organizations from the ground up in the early days. And the last 2 points I'd like to cover are trust and freedom. Again, if we talk about more let's go less volatile and more sort of specific, from a trust perspective, it's just recognizing everyone else's contribution, and that then leads to policies that are purely based on trust. No monitoring on presence, absence, ability for individuals to set their own salary, their own progression. It's very revolutionary, I think, and for us it works. And the other one's freedom, unlimited PTO, again, related to trust, but also being able to arrange our personal lives around what we're trying to achieve with the organization. I have a couple examples of culture. I added this slide yesterday because if you can recognize it, that's actually Denver. We were walking to the convention center yesterday,
and I think this is a perfect example of that shared culture that we foster. We're customer first. We've always been customer first. We used to be extremely proud of every new organization that joined us. And we saw a school bus. It said Adams 12 5-star schools, one of our customers from the early days. And the buzz it generated in us to just say they use Halo as we were walking past the convention. It just, the sense of pride, I'd say, in what we do is what contributes to being able to spread and share that culture. And the other example is a book, Ricardo Semler, a Brazilian businessman that completely revolutionized a company called Semco. And I'd like to read a quick quote from the book because, again, we send a copy of this book to every new starter, and it's a very good way to understand what we're trying to achieve. And again, I think the quote is very telling. It just goes, in the lobby of our headquarters, a standard issue office building with 4 floors of steel and glass, there is a reception desk,
but no receptionist. That's the first clue that we are different. We don't have receptionists. We don't think they are necessary, despite all our visitors. We don't have secretaries either, or PAs. We don't believe in cluttering the payroll with ungratifying dead-end jobs. Everyone at Semco, even top managers, fetches guests, stands over photocopiers, sends faxes. Well, we don't send faxes, but types letters and dials the phone. We don't have executive dining rooms, and parking is strictly first come, first serve. It's all part of running a natural business. At Semper, we've stripped away the unnecessary perks and privileges that feed the ego but hurt the balance sheet, and distract everyone from the crucial tasks of making, selling, billing, and collecting. Our offices don't even have the usual number of walls. Instead, a forest of plants just separates the desks. Computers and drawing boards in the work areas. The mood is informal. Some people wear suits, ties and dresses. Personally, I don't know why, but they do. Other, jeans and sneakers. It doesn't matter. People are allowed to be themselves. The second pillar I want to cover is efficiency. To be honest, I think this is probably the most important from an operational perspective. Efficiency is at the heart of everything we do. And again, I'll be much more specific when it comes to covering what we mean by efficiency. Extreme focus on knowledge transfer, being close to individuals with knowledge. Always question in every decision what's the trade-off between cost and value is, and actually being able to push in questioning those decisions to new individuals. Importance of being in the office, we don't think that remote and hybrid working has to be the norm as and when it affects efficiency. So that goes back to being able to go against the grain and perhaps challenge some of the things that are a given nowadays. And then obviously going back to the way we're structured, extremely fast decision making. We don't get bogged down with layers of approvals. There's a nice anecdote I'd like to use. One of our developers had to build an integration, a connector with Facebook, I think, or Instagram, a Meta company anyway. And they needed a SIM card, and we never had a company SIM card at the time. What they did is just went, there was other company 9 months, went, bought a SIM card, expensed it to the company. It sounds standard, right? So many other organizations would have actually waited for layers of approval, would have sat on someone's desk, and the customer would have waited a month longer for the integration. That's something we'll never compromise on. And then the last one is a bit in jest, a bit tongue-in-cheek. Shouldn't this meeting be an email? Every time that we're sat on a meeting, we question, is this meeting necessary? Is this actually the most efficient thing to make a decision or have a discussion? On the efficiency front, I think it's really relevant to cover this process. Quote, if you think people are scar tissue, you should see organizations. Each time there's a disaster, they create a process to prevent future disasters of that type. Eventually, they create a thick layer of these processes that prevents them from moving. Then they die. And the same goes with Parkinson's law, going back to that integration example. The concept that time expands to fill the time allotted for a task. Right? So if you're given a ticket, to use a relevant example to where we are, estimated time of an hour, engineer is going to take an hour most of the time. Don't give an estimated time, make them focus on efficiency, you'd be surprised about how much they can cut on that time taken. Third pillar is communication. It's a balance between efficiency and communication. It's understanding that sometimes it is important to, go the other way around. Do not compromise on communicating effectively. And again, operationally, let's start with the bottom bullet point. The exact opposite. Shouldn't this email be a meeting? Every time that communication is inefficient, think about whether you could make it more efficient, whether it's better to get everyone in a room. And again, this happens every day, and we challenge individuals every day based on the decisions they make around this. And the other one's just around being able to foster communication from multiple directions. It's not top-down, it's not bottom-up, it's a combination of the two. Decision-making and the way in which we build our strategy is communicated thoroughly to all individuals. And at the same time, individuals that are actually in charge of executing that strategy are fully consulted and able to communicate to, be able to contribute to it directly. The other thing that's very important from a communication perspective is your hiring strategy. Always hire based on personality. Communication differs depending on the industry, the team, what you're trying to achieve, but we want to have members of the team that will be able to communicate the way we want them to communicate. In our case, it's just being extremely straightforward, no sugarcoating, straight to the point, and therefore it's one of the first things that we address when we look at new individuals to join the team. Heart of communication is Brooks' Law. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Brooks' Law, but it's a real working example how important it is to maintain a lean and efficient structure. Every new resource we add multiple lines of communication that, again, contribute to the efficiency. So it's always about the trade-off. Do we need the resource? Or is it actually going to make us more inefficient because of how many lines of communications are we continuously exponentially adding to? And the last one is accountability. Accountability in this case, the way I see it, is accountability of individuals and the responsibilities they have for their own progression. The first point around this is the extreme rejection of segregation of duties. Is everyone's responsibility at a high level for the company to grow? At a low level, not to miss a sales call. Another anecdote I like to share is our CEO and founder, again, the same guy that sits next to the interns on a daily basis, is so extremely focused on this point that he solutioned a way not to miss calls. And went around and we bought 2 Nokia phones from the 90s, the ones with Snake. And they make a very obnoxious noise when they ring, right? And every one of our global office has 2 of those. And whenever a sale call gets transferred across, because everyone's busy and someone thinks that they're doing something that's more important, they start ringing. They get answered within seconds because no one wants to hear that obnoxious noise in open space. The other very important topic around accountability is giving staff, giving individuals, all team members, almost the onus to improve their perception of the workplace. We all do NPS surveys in terms of staff happiness, but how much do we listen to feedback, and how much do we tell them it's your responsibility to advocate for the changes that would make you happier? And of course, sometimes individuals clash. We can't make everyone happy. Sometimes you have to make decisions, but informing them from day one that they will have a clear impact in the decisions that are made goes a long way. I'd like to cover, again, some examples from Megan Brown, a CEO of a company, again, very active on LinkedIn. And, we don't have egos. We love our pillars, and we take them very seriously. But when we see something we like, we take it. And most of our, older folks that read this printed it. It's now out on our office because we love it. And it's about how important it is for individuals that join the team to understand that they are accountable, right? There's 9 examples on the screen. I'll let you read them. I'm not going to go through all of them. But I think it's very, very important to understand that that's what drives and determines success for an organization. And lastly, I'd like to cover some sort of takeaways and why I decided to present this and what we think the future holds. The first one is the importance of maintaining this mentality. That's where the challenge is, right? Growth and complexity that comes with being a larger organization is something that scares us, right? Look at Brooks Law. Yes, we do hire around 2 people a week these days. How are we able to maintain that mentality? There's strategies. Firstly is, again, every time that we make a decision around adding a new resource, understanding whether they're going to add and contribute. The other way is the way we organize teams internally. And again, I see this a lot nowadays with the way in which the service desk teams and the support teams have evolved. A lot of the time, they're smaller groups of people responsible for certain sets of support lines. And that's very important because it really helps keep the decisions informed and the communication informed within that smaller group. So that's what the future holds. We'll probably divide even further and go that way. And the other one is, going back to the example of the obnoxious ringtone, is never compromise on service. Doesn't matter how much we grow, doesn't matter where we get to, we will not want to miss a sales call ever. And effectively, what we want to get to is a point where our brand can be correlated directly with exceptional service. The other thing is a focus on long-term thinking, not compromising on that. And what I want to close with is the idea of being able to say that an organization in an industry like the SaaS industry is able to commit and have a long-term clause with no sell-out clauses for the next 10 years. So the objective is not, grow as much as possible, get a payout. The objective is to drive what we call a futuristic workplace, drive this idea, really try and bring it forward, and perhaps, have other organizations take inspiration, and we think that growth will follow. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Thanks, everyone. For the first time I do this, so hopefully I didn't bore you too much, but I appreciate taking the time.